Hi guys. So yesterday I was making a video about the game of banksters. If you haven't seen it, you must watch it because I started the next topic about possibility of flood, how it was actually made. So what is the problem? The problem is we cannot prove anything without some theory, which is supposed to be set up in puzzle as I was promoted before starting this series of mud flood videos. And I said my puzzle was done and I completed it, but while I was making these videos of this series, I was not supporting the logics, and I jumped from one topic to another topic, not for fun, because it was because I saw misunderstanding in comments, and people were really misled by the information, and that's why I was jumping, so it would be understood, more understandable for some who were not that familiar with the subject. So I should have made this video about mud flood procedure, maybe first or second one, but I couldn't have started this topic because nobody did actually understand what was going on. So, and that's the problem, because we should be doing it to understand the real cause of the mud flood. And I'm going to show today some pictures in which my theory is going to be supported. So everyone's seen this type of thing, I guess, where you live once or twice or three times a decade, maybe you have such a thing, which is called the ice rain. And this is the consequences of the ice rain. So the problem of the ice rain, that it is a water, but it has negative temperature. So as soon as it touches something more dense than water, it starts to collect ice on it, and the next drop of water connects more ice, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna jump to it a little bit more a little bit later. So the problem with this thing, which surrounds a pretty big territory, the problem is that inside this icy mud we found many good protected, saved mammoths like this. So the problem is that if it was actually occurring like they tell us, like 10,000 years ago, then the meat wouldn't be so good, because even dogs are often fed by this meat, and even some natives actually did eat this meat, and they found some mammoths with the food in their stomachs. So that's the big problem, because if you do not include this into your theory, if you don't include that this amount of mud cannot be frozen just in a second, because if it was freezing for like a couple of days, because it can be frozen just in a second. You understand what I'm saying? Because if it flowed, it had positive temperature in Celsius degrees, so it must have some energy not to be frozen just like that, even though it could be very freezing temperature outside. So if the mammoth actually got trapped in the mud, it pretty much explains how he got there, but it doesn't explain that he totally was saved in the meat and didn't destroy his body in any way. And sometimes he has even green food in his stomach, which was not dissolved. So that proves that the mammoth, probably was frozen in a couple of minutes at least, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even faster. And this type of speed can be produced by only one thing, the ice rain. So the ice rain could have actually occurred. Uh, Let me show some infographics here again. So this is so-called tundras, and they're shown like this. The place where so-called mammoths were inhabiting. So this is the areas of the inhabited by those mammoths. In the time so-called Ice Age, they call it Ice Age, so okay, let it be. So this is the area of the place in this report that is shown, and this things marked here is the territory of eternal freezing. That's why the skeletons of mammoths are in ideal safety, not just skeletons. The bodies of mammoths are in ideal safety sometimes. Of course, many time passed, but still, even bodies of them are in ideal safety sometimes. But as you can see, this is not very deep from the surface, so here probably the bodies already did dissolve. But in this type of thing, definitely this is a huge iceberg of mud. This is complete ice here. So somewhere where you can see this ice, this is muddy ice, as I was saying, it could have been produced by so-called mud flood. So how can actually be performed this ice rain at the same time and the mud flood, which could be a tsunami type of thing? How could this actually perform? The problem is you can't just get this much amount of water in the air immediately out of nowhere. So if we have a huge rain, if we have a storm or maybe some disaster, including heavy raining, we suppose that somewhere the hot air and sun made some water to make themselves as a steam and go up in the sky, so where it forms in the clouds and stuff like that. So some type of dehydration of the ground maybe, because all this moisture goes in the air and condenses in clouds and storms and stuff like that. So how can you get a permanent heavy raining on such huge territory for it to get frozen immediately and contain the animals' bodies throughout, let's say, 10,000 years? Is it possible? I don't think so. But is it possible if we say like this? How many moisture is supposed to be fallen to contain such territory uh, to be in ice rain and contain animal's body for 200 years. So it's not so fantastic to sound, because 200 years is not very much. So we have to prove it had many moisture that day, and heavy raining with the ice heavy rains could have occurred. So we have to prove that uh, a huge amount of moisture disappeared from somewhere, not from the oceans and the seas where it can disappear and can just vaporize in a second. But we have to prove something else. We have to prove that many moisture disappeared from the ground. Could that actually happen? This is a huge territory, as you can see. So the huge amount of something supposed to be uh, turned to a vapor in a short period of time. So this huge ice storm could have been performed. And in fact, we have a reason for that. And that reason is marked on every Google map or whatever map you use. As you can see, we have a territory of forests in Canada, Russia, here, and as I've said, if we take and look at all those forests, we cannot find many trees which are older than 200 years, maybe 2 or 3 in each forest, at least, if we get lucky. Somewhere we have trees that are left from that. Of course, Russia is very huge, but mostly we don't have no trees older than 200 years. Like 95 or maybe 96% are younger than 200 years, and only maybe 4% is just, mathematic error percentage. So we cannot trust that. So most likely no trees older than 200 years. For my observation, that's correct, completely correct. But maybe we have I saw 2 or 3 trees in whole Moscow region that are older than 200 years. 2 or 3. And we have a huge territory here in Moscow. Just unbelievable huge territory. And no trees older than 200 years. So the problem is that right now we have this forest territory, which is not populated very much. And I showed you on the maps and the video about ancient giant tree, Lukamori ancient giant tree, that we had very populated area here before this freezing mud came. So how could it come? How could it? If we don't have no trees, just let me think about a fire, or if we had a carpet bombing, this could start a huge fires everywhere here. After the strikes, the fire can actually get started, and if the forests are dry, if there are no clouds, no rains, if you set the whole Russia on fire, all forest is gonna get burned. And when the trees are burned, uh, we have all animals run and stuff like that. So they get crazy. They run out on those areas where no trees, like valleys and stuff like that. They try to get safe there. They try to keep close to the creeks, to the water. And while the trees are on fire, if you have seen maybe this type of thing. So this is the picture of just cutted trees, and they didn't care that those trees were with green leaves and stuff like that. And these are wet trees. So inside of them there is a whole bunch of moisture. And those trees are actually the trees that are growing at that period of time when they were cut. So you have to like dry them out to use them for this type of things and stuff like that. So first of all, trees were dried out, then they got polished like this and become the material for a wooden house. So if you have a fire, all this moisture from the trees in a couple of seconds, when the tree is, maybe not a couple of seconds, but in a short period of time, the forests get the moisture in the air due to the fire inside the forest. So they dry out and all this moisture just vaporizes. So if you have a large territory covered with trees like this big, or maybe Canada is also in America is huge. So if you have this bombing over here, and we saw the maps where Hudson Bay was not so big, and I promise I'll find that map soon and show it to you again. So maybe we had a strike here too, so who knows? Because I also shown in my previous video that in the war of 1812, Canada, United States was also engaged in this war with Britain, and itself they were fighting each other. So it was all mixed up. French was versus British, and Russians were against Russians and other Russians. So it was very, very complicated. The Moscow probably was the capital of different Russia than the Russia we used to know, and St. Petersburg was so-called Prussia, maybe, because all those kings were in one bloodline. So what I was saying is the trees could have get burned and give this moisture away, and a huge smoke could occur because huge uh, situation. Even all those strikes, if they did occur, they should get these balls of dust in the air, and so this could have an effect of nuclear winter, so-called nuclear winter, because when you have a nuclear winter, you don't have any sun which can touch the ground and heat it up. So like sun is almost invisible. Of course, this is shown us to us as an example of something, and we know about the year with no summer when we had a winter. So that could be possibly the effect of what happened after this ice rain, because all this moisture froze in the air to the negative temperatures, but it could have been fallen like a rain because this water is not frozen enough to, so it's like close to 0 degrees water, and while it falls it gets colder and colder to the ground, because on the ground we have uh, a temperature maybe lower than in the air sometimes. So who knows at what period of time, at what season it was actually occurring. Mammoths were tougher than when we think, because they were obviously having this uh, skin, huge, thick skin and hair, so they could survive some freezing temperatures, even way below 0. But if they were wet, completely wet, and if they occurred on the valleys, which is a muddy place, of course, they could have been sucked in this mud flood and didn't run away because all those forests were already burned or still burning. So this was probably the reason the huge heavy raining was starting at that time, because while you have this moisture in the air is supposed to fall down, of course, in some way, snow or rain. But if this is a dusty air, when you have like a whole bunch of explosions all around, it can pull up all this dust in the dust bowls and stuff like that, which were in this mixture with this rains and stuff like that. So it could fall a muddy rain or a muddy icy rain, and this could end those mammoths, of course. But the southern part didn't have this ice rains because it still were a lot more hotter here and more hotter temperatures here, because it was probably not as much bumped as this northern part. Probably it was like this. But the tsunamis I was talking about could actually be real, because we have at certain time, if we have that as a conspiracy, as a way of destruction some huge country, as a possible plan, they should have been aware of everything. Maybe they were not expecting a mud flood. That's why they try to cover it up. Maybe that's the theory, because if you unpack this mud flood thing, you're supposed to explain how it actually was occurring. And how do they explain it? There's no way. There's no way they can explain it without this blast and attack thing, because if you're gonna prove about mud flood, you're supposed to show the maps. If you're supposed to show the maps, you're supposed to show the cities, the actual towns that were in the areas. And you're supposed to prove, go there and dig and find those cities and say, guys, yes, mud flood was real. These are the cities. But you won't do it because the cities are destroyed. That's why they don't want to mess with this mud flood thing and just had a deal to forget it, rewrote all those books, said it was nothing, said it was just like a year without no summer and stuff like that. So that's the way, and that's the reason. That's the reason they did it. Okay, chat is disabled. Why is that? Okay, let's see. Guess I made it. Chat. Who wants can ask questions. So my theory is basically like this. It was destroyed for a carpet bombing method. Then after it, huge tsunamis were sent to make sure all those people won't get any transportation and get stuck in those areas. And after that, it was uncontrolled because the forests were burning and no one was actually trying to save them. Some of them fires were shot by the floods of tsunamis, but tsunamis, as I researched in a couple of days, after my thing about tsunami that I was told. So the thing is that tsunamis don't actually go that far to reach maybe these points. These points, they have like 1,000 kilometer range and not more. Even though if they are very, very big, the wave comes less and less with each mile it covers. So the version of tsunami of like a mass destruction weapon is very hard to prove. Even though we can talk about the shift of the poles or whatever, I was talking about Greenland. That does prove much because Greenland is also covered with snow right now, and we can't do anything to uncover what's inside, what was inside. Maybe it was also bombed, who knows? But tsunami itself doesn't go that far. Although it's global tsunami or whatever tsunami, it can go like 6 or 8 kilometers away from the shore without destroying the whole world. Because if we have this type of thing that can go that far, it's probably gonna destroy the whole world. There's no way. It's supposed to be like a 300 kilometers high tsunami to cover to this point, because it's an arithmetic progression. Use the sources about that. So, well, so tsunami, if it was a tsunami, if it actually was, and we see some possible signs of it, like those lakes, those things that were supposed to be bombed, while carpet bombing occurred in this area, right now they are all with the water inside. Here, 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 everywhere. So, of course, if there was a tsunami and it was in this range, it could have been making those lakes, filling those craters. Nobody's asking questions. Okay, so the topic is probably done for today. Ask your questions in the comments field and we'll cover that in the next video. But thanks a lot. See you later, guys.